Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode 106. I just destroyed our microphone. What is this? Gaston's Great? Yeah, it's a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long. We are coming to you once again from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. So like we have the last couple of weeks, we are going to shift gears a little bit again and do something I've wanted to do with our podcast for a while. So over the next few months, we are going to have some more community organizations, some community individuals who have done some great work in the community, but I wanted to talk about some specific topics like leadership or, for example, or maybe focus on a book. And we're going to kind of start that discussion today. And I'm thrilled to have with us Mr. Mark Benton, who is our operations manager here at GSM within our residential division, and I want to talk with him about his kind of personal leadership journey. And we're going to kind of base this on a book that our company has studied over the last couple of years. And again, we'll get into that in a minute. But Mark, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Jeez, Stephen. Naomi, I'm all over the place today. Jeez. We're good. We got it. We're under control here. So, we're going to get into this book and then the what it's titled and all that. But first, just something our listeners are probably interested in. Mark, if you don't mind, just share a little bit about yourself and anything that you'd like to share, and then we'll get into the topic.
Let's see. I grew up off of Mill Hill, so I'm from here. I bleed here. I know where it's from. Went through Wood Hill, Greer, and Ashbrook. Finished that up.
Green Wave.
Huh?
Green Wave.
Yeah, Green Wave all the way.
We've had several Green Wave guests on
of
the podcast.
I mean,
That's right.
Yeah. But we went there, then went in the military for 8 years, got out.
Appreciate that.
And went and worked at Freightliner for a little while, and then decided I wanted something that was a little bit more grounded, a little bit more stable for the family and everything like that. So you didn't have to worry about the layoffs or the strikes or anything like that. So I came in HVAC.
And how long ago was that?
21 years ago.
21 years?
21
okay,
years
so
ago.
It's been when you say it actually, wow,
It's
that was good timing there,
nice,
Naomi.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's a snap of the fingers, isn't it? Yeah.
It's quick. I remember the day, I remember coming in as an apprentice and, and the journey there that it's been, and it's been great. I've enjoyed it.
So one reason I wanted Mark on is I've had the great fortune of working with a lot of terrific individuals, and be involved with a lot of great individuals in the community. Met a lot of people through our industry all over the country. But Mark is unique in his leadership journey, his leadership skills. I consider him one of the better leaders that I've been around for lots of different reasons. So before we dive into the specific, do you mind maybe just sharing a little bit about what kind of got you started on your focus, whether it was the military or something happened before that, or what you've studied and learned since then, or being in charge of teams, whatever, you can just share briefly about what kind of started you on that journey of learning more about leadership and kind of getting to where you are today on that specific journey.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. Basically, I saw it done the wrong way. I know how leaders made me feel. I felt like I was getting beat up. I felt like I couldn't do anything. I saw all the bad sides of it, and a lot of times I thought there's got to be a better way, because you hear about these great leaders, right? You hear about Lincoln. You hear about all these great leaders in our country and people around, and then you saw it at a ground level, and you're like, that doesn't look the same. It doesn't, right? Yeah. It doesn't look like. And I thought, there's got to be other things. So you start reading books with some of these, and you start looking at it. Now, I mean, I can even go back to the military, and which is a whole different type of leadership. But you still look at it and you think, man, there's got to be a way to really influence people and really let people know you care and guide them. Be more of like, a shepherd, right? Instead of being the dog that is biting at them and grinding on them. There's got to be a way to shepherd people properly. And so that's what got me going down that whole journey of reading books and trying to see what a real leader should look like in today's society and even back.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just a little background is good, because you and I both, and listen, lots of people here at GSM and the community people that we know have kind of gone down that path as well. So what we're going to specifically focus on and pull some specific information from is a book. I'm going to show it up here. I think Naomi's going to do a better job of letting you guys see the book. The title of the book is The Way of the Shepherd. You can see it's a relatively short book, but it's one that we studied through our leadership study, I guess, back in 2021, I guess is when we started those specific studies. And to Mark's point, I like the word shepherd. And if you're interested in I would encourage you actually to go get the book and read it. It's relatively short. It's by Dr. Kevin Lehman and Bill Pentak. And the subtitle is 7 Secrets to Managing Productive People. But I like to insert the word leadership in place of managing, because management is part of what we do here when we're dealing with teams. But I just think it's personally more difficult to manage people as opposed to leading them in different ways, and kind of the concept. So before we kind of get started, though, I'll give you just a very quick summary of how the book gets started. I mean, it's a parable about a company called General Technologies, and the gentleman who has helped this company grow to a nationwide or internationally successful company, a gentleman named Theodore McBride. He's about to retire, and he is wanting to give these principles of management and leadership. He wants to tell it to somebody. He wants to be interviewed by somebody and turn these over so it can be passed on as it was passed on to him. So he, oddly enough, the name is Mr. Pentak. I don't think we ever actually get his first name in the book, but he agrees to be interviewed by a gentleman, a journalist named Mr. Pentak. And then that's where the book starts, is basically the interviews. He's going to share all of these principles. And he goes back in time to when he was a student at University of Texas, and he was in their MBA program, and he is about to graduate, and he gets a job with General Technologies many years ago. And he's not concerned about it's in the finance department of General Technologies. He's not concerned about the finance or the technical side of the job. He's concerned because he realizes he's got to manage and lead 9 people, a team of 9 people. And he realizes, oh, good gracious, I have no idea how to lead people. And so he goes back to his favorite professor, a gentleman named Dr. Jack Newman, and he tells him how great it is he's got this new job. But then he realizes, oh man, what am I going to do now that I'm leading 9 people? And he asks his professor if he will help him learn how to lead these people. And of course, his professor says, okay. And that's where he learned these 7 principles to leading a productive team. So that's how it starts. And so he agrees to give up his Saturday mornings or Saturdays to as long as he was committed. I remember that specifically in the book, is in like so many things, the professor made sure, are you committed to learning these concepts? Because if not, I don't want to waste my time. And one thing I meant to mention is something that was, again, in the book, is when he goes to meet Mr. McBride, this journalist, he meets his assistant, who had been an assistant for him for 14 years, and he asked the assistant, why have you worked for General Technologies for so long? And her response was, he expects the best from us, and we give it to him because we know he's going to giving his best to us in return. Let me repeat that. He expects the best from us, and we give it to him because we know he's giving his best to us in return. So think about that concept, and I think that's kind of maybe that's a good lead-in to these leadership concepts that we're going to talk about. And hopefully, over the next, not consecutive 7 weeks, but over the next few months, as we fill in some of these podcast episodes, we're going to continue talking about this. Of course, unless this episode is a complete disaster and Naomi says we're not going to do any more of these. That could happen, right, Naomi? Yeah, good. Naomi says yes. She's off camera. So, the way of the shepherd. So, within GSM and within, I think, Mark and I leadership journey, we have come to like that vision and that concept of the shepherd. lots of different reasons. But a shepherd, what I think of is literally the shepherd out in the field, maybe even biblical times, thinking of the shepherd, right?
Right.
And what they have to do to lead their flock, so to speak. And that's the phrase that, or the word that is used often in this book, is flock. And so principle number one, we're going to jump right into, and principle number one, coming from Dr. Newman, is know the condition of your flock. So if you're leading a team, the first concept that you really have to get a grip on is know the condition of your flock, or we might change it here internally to know the condition of your team. So I'm going to throw that out there and get Mark's input here. So when you hear that in 2023, what comes to mind? You know, what is it about that concept what triggers in your mind when you hear that?
Well, I think for me it comes to the old saying, right? They don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that kind of situation. So for me, you know, when I took over and started going toward the install and the home performance side and everything, if you looked, I don't know that you realized what I was doing, but when I went out there on the dock, every morning I'm out there on the dock with those guys.
Right.
And it's not the work. I mean, yeah, I'm loading up equipment. I'm doing that. I'm helping them out. I'm pulling duct work and I'm doing this, but it's not the work. What I'm doing is I'm looking in their eyes, and I wanted to look at them, and I'm going to go, are you ready to serve a customer today? Is there something weighing you down? Is there something that's pulling you back right now? And that's what I'm doing out there on the dock, is I'm looking in their eyes to see, are you ready to serve our customers today? And if they're not, then after you build that relationship, you can pull that person to the side and go, hey, man, you're looking tired this morning. How's the new baby, right? Because you realize he has a new baby, or you realize this, you know, baby keep you up last night? No, I got other things going on. Okay, you want to talk about it? Because that 5 or 10 minute conversation can make the difference for him for the rest of that day. You know, you're setting that tone. And that's the thing I think people forget about with leaders, right? You set the tone. The leader sets the tone.
Right.
You know, if the leader's out there kicking cans and complaining and talking about how tired he is and, oh, man, it was so hard yesterday.
The weather's bad, whatever.
Yeah, nobody, there you go. It's cold, it's rainy, it's this, it's that. Well, yeah, instantly their minds go,
you're right, it is.
You're right. You know, so you have got to set that tone as a leader. And I don't mean that in a way of, you know, you've got to sit there with pom-poms and, you know, come on, guys, it's a great day. Come on, you know, but be realistic about it. But also let them know that you're there. You're right there with them. You're trudging with them. You know what they're going through, and you appreciate them, and you appreciate what they do every day. And I think if you do that, that earns you a certain level of clout with those guys. You know, those guys realize that you're not just beating them over the head to get a profit. You're really invested in them. And in turn, they'll invest in you. They'll invest in your success just as much as you invest in their success.
So that's a great representation of, you know, what the working world and what we deal with when you're in charge of a team. In the book, Dr. Newman first expresses this to Theodore McBride when he just is about to graduate college. He takes him out to his ranch, and what's the interesting part when you read this chapter is that he doesn't get it at first, not even close. So because he takes him out to his ranch to see his flock of sheep, and of course he's wondering what in the world are we doing out here, and he even makes some comment about, boy, these things stink, and you know, he just doesn't connect with him, and they get out into the field, and of course the sheep come over to Dr. Newman, and you can tell that they are glad to see Dr. Newman.
Yep.
And then he asks him some questions. One of the first thing he does is count the sheep. You know, how many sheep are here? So they both do that, and it's the right number. But then he says, well, if one was missing, what do you do? Because again, he's looking out for his sheep. He also made the point that either between him or one of his ranch hands, they're going to see them at least twice every single day.
Yep.
So they know the number of sheep, the condition they're in. He even looks individually at every single sheep.
Checks their hooves.
Yes.
Yeah, he checks their hooves to be sure their hooves aren't split. It was some really interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to get into, we'll let you read the book if you're interested. You can probably even find copies of this online if you really looked hard enough. But the point is, he was trying to express what's required to get to know the condition of your team, or again, in this case, your flock. And it's not something that you can you have to be intentional about it. And it's more, to your point, Mark, it's what is first? First is getting to know what's going on in their lives, frankly, if you're trying to lead a team. It can't be, or it shouldn't be first, what are you going to do to get this job done today?
Right.
Listen, we all know that we've got to get work done. We all know that every day is not Disney World. We all know that, some days are harder than others. But at the same time, we have to be aware of what's going on within the teams. And so I thought it's a really interesting story. I mean, I'm shortening this, I don't know, 20-page chapter or whatever into just a couple of sentences, but you can really get more detail about that.
Well, let me ask you this: did you catch that? Where did he see them at? Where did he see his sheep at?
In their environment.
In their environment.
Right. He went to them.
Yeah. He didn't bring the sheep. He didn't put the sheep in a truck and have them brought to his environment and check them out in his environment. He was right down there in the muck and the mud.
Yes.
And all of that. He was checking them there. And I think that's huge for a leader too, is you don't want to wait for them to come to your office and search you out. If you want to see how they're doing, if you want to see what they're in, go to their environment. You've got to go into their environment and live in their environment if you really want to get openness and that conversation going and everything.
Yeah, so in the business world, this applies to the business world, it applies to church, to your family, to, let's say you're a youth coach, you're a high school coach, you're a teacher. There's just so many applications that these concepts apply to. We just happen to be using it for, initially for our business here, but we quickly learned, right, or saw where this applies to just all of our interactions and all of our relationships. Even one-on-one, we're using the concept of a team here, but it really applies to those one-on-one interactions and relationships as well. So as this goes on, of course, we're not going to go to the second one just because for sake of time, and surprisingly, we're already at like 18 minutes here. But I pulled out two quotes, Mark, I want to throw at you that I think apply to this. And if anybody out there who's been listening to our podcast, they know that I either share some kind of quote or thought at the end, but I pulled two that I think relate. The first one is from Stephen Covey. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey, he wrote a terrific book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This is basically one of those habits, but he said, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. So he also phrased this concept as you should first seek to understand before being understood. So kind of what Mark's describing is you have to ask these questions and genuinely be interested in the other person.
Yes.
Whether it's a one-on-one relationship, whether it's a team, whether it's work, whether you have to sit across from Amy, or whatever the case may be. And the second one is very similar, but it ties into the same thing from Harvey Firestone, who is a pretty famous businessman. He said, the growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership. So how do you help individuals and teams grow and develop? Well, what we're talking, we believe, and I'm not going to speak for Mark, but I think he would agree, but I'll let him speak to that, is we believe this is the first step if you really want to, because this is what is required for the team to trust you as a leader. Otherwise, they're not going to listen, they're not going to follow, because if you're just spouting off orders and directions and all this other stuff, that's just not how it works. So kind of maybe how do you see those quotes and that concepts tying into this whole know your flock and know your condition of your team?
Yeah, that first one is the one that I think everyone that I know struggles with, because we want to have the answer. We want to talk, right? And so many times, God, I'm trying to remind you and I were speaking a few days ago or something, And I had the answer by your second statement. I had the I had the answer, and I was waiting on you to just stop talking for 1 minute, and I could tell you what the answer was. But through I think maturity and reading, I kind of pushed that back out of the way and continued to listen. And had I answered, if I had just done that, I would have given you the wrong answer, because you were asking a leading, you were following up with with more information, and I went, oh, I'm glad I didn't just jump in there, right? But I think we all do that with my wife, with my daughters, with my grandkids, right? With my coworkers. Man, yeah, it's really easy to think you know the answer to it, but you probably don't. Not unless you're listening. You answer. You
can also gather, do they really want an answer?
Right.
Because as I'm gonna, typically, us men want to solve things. We want to solve that issue, right?
Yeah.
How does that work out all the time for us dummies, huh, Naomi? When oftentimes whoever is talking to us, they're just looking to give us information, to get it out off their chest, to help us understand, as opposed to, that's also why, I know y'all have heard me say this over the years here, is why I was an average salesman at best. It's because I couldn't wait for the other person to be quiet so I could show them how I'm going to solve their issue or problem, whether they wanted it to be solved or not.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to show them how smart I was. And I even remember sales situation where they were ready to sign on the dotted line. I said, well, wait, I haven't shared everything that I know yet. So I need you. Can you let me finish talking before you sign on the dotted line?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same in these team building relationships, that listening is such a learned skill, in my opinion. Some people, I think, are naturally better at it than others, but I do believe it's a learned skill through another concept that you and I talk about a lot, is empathy, right? And that's to me, that's kind of the underlying foundation of all this is empathy and understanding. So,
yeah. Well, remember what, I think it's been about a year ago, I started going down that road, and Lisa, that's my wife, but Lisa absolutely hates it and loves it at the same time, because I ask her, look, do you need me to hear you? Do you need me to help you?
Yeah.
Or do you just need me to hug you? What do you need from me right now? Because as a man, I automatically, I want to do it. I want to just, oh, you need this done? Yeah, I got it. I can do that. I can do that. And sometimes she's like, shh, just stop.
Yeah.
I just want you to hear what I'm saying right now. I don't need you to take action. I just need you to hear me. And so I've really tried hard to get to that place where I'm looking at her and going, you need me to hear you right now. You need to unload right now. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing with our coworkers and people that we follow, is sometimes they're asking for your help, but sometimes they're not asking for help, man. They're just needing you to hear them. And then sometimes they need a proverbial hug. Sometimes every human being out there sometimes just needs a hug and needs to be said, hey, it's going to be okay, man. It's going to be okay.
So I think there's this, especially going back to, say, your military example, or me growing up, when I thought of the term leadership, that's the image I had, was probably war movies that I had watched, or it was General Patton, or it was, I don't know, The Lone Ranger, or some image I had from television, or something I had read about the hard-nosed direction giver. This is how you do it, as opposed to kind of what we're talking about here, is that the leader is so much more, and it's mostly it's empathy, listening, and everybody's different. So the concept where we talked about, Dr. Newman, he was checking every single one of those 42 sheep.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't collectively making a judgment by looking at a couple and saying, I see where you're at, and I know how to treat all of you. That's not how it works either. It's collectively. Now, military, I can see maybe a little bit different, because sometimes the platoon's got to go do the same thing, right, or whatever, accomplish the mission. But when you're developing the individuals in the platoon, you got to treat the individuals differently.
Oh, absolutely.
And regardless of the team.
Well, you've got to build that trust. When I tell you to, let's go hit this hill, right? Or, when you've got a 12-man fire team and you're going, hey, I need you three to do this way, and I need you to draw fire here, right? Because when you draw fire, I'm going to run a secondary mission to this side and I'm going to unload you. Don't worry. I'm going to get them off of you, but I need you to go draw this fire for me for a minute where I can get to this side right here. Well, they have to trust 100% that that leader is going to be there when he says he's going to be there. He's not going to desert them. He's not going to walk off from them. So, yeah, there's a lot of that trust building that has to happen before you ever, go into that situation and everything.
All right. So, Naomi would tell you, Mark and I could probably talk about this topic for. She's about to cut us off here.
She's trying to hit the button.
But so we're going to try to land the plane on this one. But so kind of summary. Another thing about this book, there's a quick summary at the end of each chapter, and I'm going to kind of just read these real quick, and we'll close this one out here in a second. But I do have a couple questions for Mark that I'm going to ask him, and that we won't ask on the subsequent episodes. But kind of summarizing this is knowing the condition of your flock or your team or your closest relationship. So first is follow the status of your team members as well as the status of the work. So again, that's kind of the very first thing we talked about. You got to know and focus not just on the work being done, but where are they at emotionally, spiritually, or whatever the case may be. Get to know the team members one person at a time. It'd be nice to be able to do it collectively, but you really can if you're going to get to know your team members. Engage the team on a regular basis. Mark mentioned it, right? Going to where they are. You can't if you're an executive, sitting in your office waiting for the team members to come to you isn't going to work.
Nope.
You got to get out in the trenches, so to speak. And then keep your eyes and ears open, question, and follow through. Keep your eyes and ears open and question and follow through. So that's a quick summary of the first principle of the seven secrets to managing and leading productive people. And so we're going to close this one out here real quick, but I do have two questions from Mark, and this is the questions that we ask on pretty much every episode.
Okay. And
because remember, this is about Gaston's great, and I think good leadership and that we have here in the county is a reason that Gaston County is such a great place. But this obviously applies to a lot of other things besides just Gaston County. But from your perspective, Mark, being here most of your life, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
I think the variety. I think that you have such a vast wealth of people. You know what I mean? I mean, you can go from there. You're not going to find many people outside. I've been all over the world, in my military stuff, and I couldn't wait to get back home. And it wasn't because my mom and dad was there; it was because the people are here. Because we just have a great variety of people, and it gives you the ability. One thing I learned in my time away was I could talk to anybody on any level. I could talk to someone at a high level, or I could talk to someone that was dealing with something at a lower level, because we have that kind of level in Gastonia. You have just such a great variety of lifestyles in Gastonia. I think it works well for us.
Very good. I appreciate that. Knowing what you know now, I know it was just a couple of years ago, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Man, you don't give nobody time to even think about that. Probably, yeah. So don't worry about becoming 30. Don't worry about becoming 40. Don't worry about becoming 50. Enjoy 20. Enjoy 21. Enjoy 22. Quit thinking about buying a house. Quit thinking about the next car, the next job, the next promotion, the next kid. Please quit thinking about that and enjoy 20. Enjoy 20.
The past is gone and the future will come as it comes. And take advantage of the moment, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And don't worry about what's going to happen, because it's going to happen. Worrying is paying interest on a loan that you hadn't even taken out yet.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, so why sit back and worry? Oh, I'm worried that this is going to happen. I'm worried that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
106 episodes. That's a pretty unique answer that we haven't heard. So I appreciate that. But you're exactly right. There's too much thinking about what's next and worrying about what's already happened, and we miss what's right in front of us sometimes, right?
You miss it. And then you look back on it and go, oh, man, I wish I'd have slowed down a little bit. I wish, because I'm 54 now. So now time is flying by. I mean, time is on fast forward, So.
All right, well, good. I appreciate that, Mark, and I appreciate being on. So we're going to continue these discussions when we can about, again, specifically on this leadership, unless, we get 100 people emailing Naomi that this is ridiculous, but actually I don't think it is. You know what? We're so stubborn we may do it anyway. But Mark, any last words on this specific topic about, before we close this one out, about knowing the condition of your flock?
No. Well, I would say one thing, and I know Naomi's, look at her, she's glaring at me right now.
Yeah.
I would say, I think one of the failures that I see as a leader is I don't mind someone finding a better opportunity. And I don't mind if they come to us and say, hey, I found a better opportunity here. I'm really happy. I'm thinking, okay, great. This was an opportunity for you to learn and grow from it. I'm glad. But I think for me, the ones that really bother me, when you were talking about knowing the condition of your flock, when you have somebody that just quits, for me, that tears my heart out as a leader, because I'm thinking, what did I miss?
Yeah.
What did I miss? What about my personality? What about me?
Or what question did we not ask? Or
why was I not accessible to this, this young person?
Why did they feel they couldn't come to you
Yes.
if there was something going on, right?
And so when we talk about leadership there, that's one of the main, I wanted to bring that up in this one, is about the condition of your flock. If you have somebody that just walks on you and just one day you turn around and go, what happened? You didn't check the condition, because you should have seen that. You should have seen that young person that was needing something that maybe you could have helped them with. And when they just do that, a lot of times I always feel personally responsible for it. I'm going, man, I missed something with this person. I missed it.
Well, in some of the other leadership books we've read and studied, like Extreme Ownership from Jocko Willink, Dichotomy of Leadership.
Yep.
Oh gosh, Dare to Lead from Brene Brown. There's so many other ones that we could talk about. We picked this one because it's great short concepts, but that kind of makes me think of the extreme ownership concept. It's up to the leader to take ownership of these relationships, of these situations. Now you got to have, it's always give and take. You got to have some interaction, but it's the leader's responsibility to help nurture the environment where the flock feels comfortable talking and coming to you and asking things. And so I think that's that dynamic of old school versus younger individuals, is that they communicate differently than we do.
Yep.
And it's our responsibility to adapt to that and to learn that. So, Mark, this has been really good, at least in my opinion. What do you think, Naomi? Naomi says this is bussin', which is a unique Naomi concept here, which is fantastic. So that means we just killed it, actually, what that means. So please look forward to some upcoming episodes where we're going to continue these type of discussions. So I appreciate it. And as always, to those who are listening out there, we appreciate your time. Thanks for continuing to listen, and please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast. You can reach us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at gastonsgreat.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms and give us a good 5-star rating. I'm sure if you could do a 6-star rating, that's what we would get on this one, right? Give us applause or something. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks again to Mark for being our guest today. You're going to hear more from him in the coming weeks and months. And as always, Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.